Hello, my name is Les Ross. I'm the Director of Golf for the online golf school, HighlanderSchoolOfGolf.com. During this video I want to cover the mechanics behind swing consistency. I'm sure all of you feel that if we're a little bit more consistent from shot to shot to where you're avoiding the mishits or the wayward shots, you could reduce your scores dramatically. And that's a fact. But how do you improve consistency of your swing? Well, in most cases you probably think that the only way I can do that is by spending more time on the range. Put the hours in and eventually I will groove a swing that becomes a lot more reliable. And that's a fact. That will happen. But for some golfers, no matter how much time they put in on the range, they never get the improvements that they're looking for. So I want to describe another technique which is a lot easier to apply and doesn't require hours and hours of hard practice where the results are not guaranteed. And this is a technique that I apply whenever I'm first working with a student. And the results that I get from this are guaranteed every single time. If you apply this technique, within the first day on the range, you'll start to see improvements in your consistency. But before I get into that, let me just give you a little bit of background behind the thinking of this technique. As some of you are aware, besides being a professional golf instructor, I'm also a mechanical engineer. Now, engineers, when they're designing mechanical systems, they use a general rule of thumb that pretty much says if you want that system to be reliable, you should use less moving parts. So the less moving parts in the system, the better it's going to be. The same principle can be applied to the golf swing. The less moving parts that are in a golf swing, the more reliable and consistent that swing is going to be. So when you think about moving parts in a golf swing, you look at it and you say, well, everything's moving. But if you look closely at the differences between people's swings, you'll realize that many golfers have what I call unnecessary motion in the swing that doesn't help the swing in any way. In fact, what it does is it just complicates the swing because it's more difficult to coordinate. So what are these examples of unnecessary motion? Well, the first one, which I'm sure you're aware of, is the bending of the left elbow on the backswing. You know, a golfer starts off with a nice firm left side, and then at some time during the backswing, that left elbow bends. Now, when that occurs, the golfer has to then coordinate that bend back into the firm position on the downswing in order to be successful with the shot. Other areas of unnecessary motion movement might include movement of your trunk or your axis, swaying on the backswing. Again, it has to be coordinated back in the correct position at impact. Lateral movement of the hips, for instance, or even lifting of the left foot, which is a very common movement. All of those motions don't add anything to the swing. In fact, as I said earlier, they complicate the swing because you have to then coordinate that motion back into the correct position at impact in order to have a successful shot. So again, how do you limit this unnecessary motion? In these cases, this kind of motion is not going to be solved by hours and hours of practice. In fact, there's only one way that you can actually eliminate unnecessary movement like this. Obviously, your techniques comes into play to some extent, but the biggest reason behind this movement is the fact that the golfer is actually pushing their backswing beyond the limits of their natural muscle flexibility. So again, going back to explain this principle, we'll go back to the bending of the left elbow. Left elbow bends typically occur once the golfer has extended their backswing to a point where the muscles in the left side just can't hold the position of the elbow. So once it gets to that point, the muscles release and the elbow bends. And that's occurred simply because the golfer was extending their backswing beyond the range of their muscle flexibility. And when you look at the other movements I described earlier, most of those occur for exactly the same reason. So then it stands to reason that if you can operate your swing within the range of your natural muscle flexibility, then you can reduce this unwanted motion. And the more that you can reduce unnecessary motion, the more consistent your swing is going to be, simply because you don't have to coordinate all of this motion back into the correct position at impact. So if you identify the limits of your swing flexibility and you go to the range and you try to work your swing within that range, I guarantee you, you're going to see immediate improvement in your consistency from shot to shot. And that's not just a theory, it's a mechanical fact. Simply because you've got less breakdowns occurring in the swing that you have to deal with in the coordination of the downswing. Now when you start thinking about, what is the range of my golf flexibility, a lot of you are going to be surprised at just what the limitations are. In my case, I'm a senior golfer, and I'm not as flexible as I used to be when I was younger, and I'm lucky at best if I can do a 3/4 swing without any breakdowns taking place. Now, for others of you, you might find that your natural golf muscle flexibility may only be a half backswing. So if you're in that situation and you push your swing well beyond that limit, then you're definitely going to be creating problems for yourself. And in fact, I see a lot of golf instruction programs that actually encourage golfers to do that, because they're based on the motions of the swings of the pros, who've spent literally years developing their flexibility. So if you haven't had much success with those kind of programs, it's no wonder, especially if you don't have the same kind of flexibility as pros, because extending your swing beyond your natural flexibility is actually going to create more problems than it's going to solve. If you need any assistance finding out the limits of your own backswing or natural flexibility, then I encourage you to pick up a copy of the book Breaking the Distance Barrier. In that book I've got several chapters that describe the techniques for gaining consistency in the swing, and also specifically finding out what the range of motion of your own flexibility limits are. If you're not ready to do that right now, then I encourage you to sign up for our newsletter. It's full of wonderful tips and videos like this on all sorts of different aspects of the game that will help you improve. So I hope you found this video informative. Find out the limits of your natural swing flexibility. Go out to the range and try and operate within that range, and I guarantee you, you're going to see immediate improvement to your consistency. So good luck with that. Thanks for stopping by, and I look forward to working with you next time. Bye-bye.